that's recording. Now, whenever we do this, we are recording right now, but obviously, if I ask you a question, you don't want to talk about it, you can always say skip, you can always say pass. If you want to take a break or anything, or need to take a break, just let me know.
Okay.
And we can stop things for a while. So the interview is yours. So I'm just here to ask questions and let you talk. So you won't hear me talk too much. You'll see a lot of this. A lot.
So, not bad.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really want to hear your voice, your story, and not mine. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, today is Friday, September the 8th at 3:45 p.m. I am in the Ritz Theater in Brunswick, Georgia, with Heather Heath, and today we are going to interview Heather and discuss the Ritz Theater, a little bit of its history. And as part of that, what we're also covering is how the theater is helping to revitalize downtown Brunswick, particularly Newcastle Street, and some of Heather's experiences with that over the years. So, Heather, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. If you will, as we start, can you please give me your first and last name and spell your last name?
My first name is Heather. My last name is Heath, Heath.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much. And what I thought we'd do, instead of just jumping straight into, hey, tell me about the Ritz, is to break around a little bit, break some ice, and kind of tell me about yourself. Where are you from initially?
Before I came to Brunswick?
Before you came to Brunswick, what were you doing before you got here?
I worked as a professional actor in Atlanta, Georgia, before I came to Brunswick. Not a great career choice, usually, for most people. I worked pretty steadily, but you spend your life looking for a job, so you just go from one job to the next. So when the opportunity came here, do I keep talking?
No, you're fine. I'm sorry. I'm just going to adjust the camera a little bit here. There you go.
So when the opportunity came kind of out of the blue to work for Golden Isles Arts and Humanities, I took it. So I had steady employment for the first time in my life for a long time.
That must have been a good feeling.
It was kind of a good feeling, yeah.
Now, were you familiar with the area before, or?
Had come down on vacation, but not to Brunswick. It was always to the islands from Atlanta. So, because that's what people do. You're going to go to the beach, so you don't stay in Brunswick. And of course, all roads divert you away from downtown Brunswick now. So I just really had never been into the downtown area.
So you lived on St. Simons, you worked on St. Simons, and
when I moved here, right. I actually did. When I moved here, I lived on St. Simons.
Okay.
When I moved here.
Okay.
But vacation was always St. Simons or go to Jekyll Island.
Right.
One of the
Okay.
two.
Yeah.
And never had the opportunity to come into the town because the vacation was the beach. So. You didn't think about going into Brunswick.
So you took the roads that bypass the city itself to get to...
Always. What most people do. They do. That's the way the roads go now. You don't go down 17, really. And you don't go... I guess it was mostly 17 that took you through.
Yeah, from what I've heard, before the interstate, before those roads were built, like the spur and all that, you did go through
You would
downtown,
go through downtown, but
you bypassed like you would do now, didn't you?
Yeah. And when I moved here, I did move to St. Simons and had a condo, a small condo on St. Simons. And then that's too much to go into of life-changing experiences like divorce and things like that. But when all that transpired, I moved into Brunswick because I was working in Brunswick at the theater at the time.
Okay, so what were your impressions then of Brunswick once you became a permanent resident of the area?
When I first moved here, it was, I'll be honest, it was wow, what have I gotten into? Because downtown was nothing. There was nothing going on downtown unless there was something happening at the theater. It was really kind of a ghost town most of the time.
And what year was this?
1998.
98. So your first impressions of the downtown area were a bit negative to a certain degree.
Yeah, I love this. I love this building. I love the theater, and I like the historic quality of the downtown. But there was no there was nothing going on. There was hardly any shops, hardly any restaurants. There was, lawyers' offices and finance companies and things like that. So there wasn't a whole lot that was going to entice people to come into the downtown anyway.
Would you say that your observations are pretty universal in terms of how people viewed the area at the time? Or?
I would say yes.
So that's your first impression, and you're going to get a job in that area.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Tell me how you got involved with the Ritz.
Well, I came here for the job because I knew Brian Thompson, who was the executive director for Golden Isles Arts and Humanities at the time. We knew each other as actors many years ago in Atlanta. And so he offered the job, and it was like, okay, yeah, all right, let's do it. So I knew I was coming to work in the arts in a theater, which of course appealed to me. So that wasn't that terrifying. But then kind of seeing that there was not a whole lot here, not that there wasn't, because the organization serves the area, not just the downtown. But it certainly was a goal to help bring people into downtown. They need to come here there's stuff that's happening in this building, come and see it. And hopefully other things will follow from that.
And you said that even though downtown was lacking certain things, a theater was here.
The theater was here.
And that people did come to the theater.
They did. I mean, that was when you could always find a parking place downtown, unless there was something happening at the Ritz, which is still the case. Not really. During the day now, you can't find a place to park downtown, which is great. But when we have an event, then there is no parking to be had, and people are parking all over the place, which is great. But now I lost my train of thought. It was the events that were bringing people. It wasn't the other things that were happening in downtown as much. So there was very much a concerted effort, I think, from us, Golden Isles Arts and Humanities, as well as other businesses and individuals in the community, to try to start making stuff happen. You can come to Brunswick. Y'all, you really can come to Brunswick. Come on.
So originally it was like, go to the theater and get out and go do something
Yeah,
else.
I mean, it was. I mean, because there wasn't other things open. It wasn't like there was lots of dining opportunities, or, let's stroll around and look in the shops before the show, or things like that. There weren't, it just wasn't. It just wasn't happening.
What sort of programming was the theater doing whenever you showed up?
When I got here, there was a season. There's always been kind of a season of performances. Some of it was like local performers. There was rentals in the theater, because it's always been available for rental for the community as well. There were exhibits in the gallery space. There weren't really formal events like First Friday that has come about that were happening at the time. It was kind of hit or miss. It was what's going to draw people. I mean, and that's when I became the executive director in 1999, it didn't take long. It was... that was kind of my focus, was what kind of things, what kind of cool art things can I bring in, and whether people come to them or not, and what are those things that are going to bring people into the theater. So kind of a mix of both. It was also for the exhibits, let's concentrate on some of our local artists as well as our students in the community, because we do a lot of arts education programs too. So as of now, at least 3 of our exhibits are focused solely on students' work, and also the art teachers as well. So we're trying to it was like finding those audiences for specific things. So not trying to always get everybody, because you just can't do it, and not everything's going to appeal to everybody, but making sure that there was something for everybody in the season or in the all the different kinds of programming that we did. The other thing that we did a lot of at the beginning, when I was here, when I first started coming here, working here, was some of the festivals and events that would happen, because at the time we were also managing Mary Ross Park for the city.
Oh wow, you guys were pretty, had your hands full.
Yeah, we did have our hands full. So we coordinated, and a lot of these started before or right when I got here. We did the 4th of July celebration always for the city. First night, which was a New Year's Eve event, happened. Many various incarnations of a seafood festival, some kind of festival like that never quite worked. They're just massively hard to pull off. And it wasn't, we didn't have the support yet completely. Or we had the support for one thing, but then they didn't want to support anything else because they already thought they had supported the organization. So like for first night, that's basically a free event for the community, and if we get sponsors, that doesn't help us with all the other programs that we're bringing into the community, or here at the theater. So, you know, it's just kind of, it was a little catch-22 in a lot of ways in doing those kinds of things. So yeah, it was the goal was to get people here, get people into the building.
So you had some plans, you had some ideas in mind as you hit the ground.
Yeah, and it was kind of hit or miss. I mean, always. I mean, the first few years, I was like going, we're bringing in stuff that people should see, not necessarily that they want to see.
That happens sometimes.
And there was a mix of both, but, I mean, there was some really interesting programs and a lot of more highfalutin kind of art, maybe.
Can you recall some of those? Like some of the
Oh, the Baltimore Consort, which is a great old music ensemble, like medieval kind of music ensemble, and they're fabulous. But they didn't sell that well because a lot of people hadn't heard of it. And nowadays, after 20 years or something of doing that, I will throw in stuff like that because people are more willing to try new things because they've come here enough to know that it's probably going to be good. Whether it's their taste or not, they're more willing to experiment, I think. If that makes sense.
Yeah, makes total sense, yeah. So you kind of get them in the door to a certain degree with what they want, then introduce them to new things along the way.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of going, you need to see this. No, I don't. So, anyway.
Well, that's great. And as you begin that journey, what's your impression of the building itself? Whenever you first started?
Oh, yeah, the building was, oh my gosh, it was, not great. That was, I mean, it was like, I love this building. I love this building. And I wish I had $1 billion to throw at it to really bring it all back. But when I got here, the theater had been saved in the late 80s by the city and the community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But the roof had collapsed over the auditorium right after they bought it, right above our heads. All of this was open to the universe.
Wow,
and
really? So just elements just coming, rain coming down? And
yeah, I mean, it was like, here's the keys to the Ritz, boom. The ceiling, the whole ceiling came in. So, and they did not think about restoring. They did not think about putting it back to what it was. They thought about putting it back together. And did they call in anybody that knows anything about theaters? I'm going to say a big no. Because when I got here, what there was, it certainly didn't look like it looks now. There was fabric on the walls, like the curtain fabric, all on the walls. There was a drop ceiling over there. They had put the balcony back and had just followed some lines that they found on the walls, I guess, that was it. So you could not see the stage from the balcony except for the front row. You could not see the stage. So there were no worthless seats up there. I mean, you couldn't see this. You could see the back wall. It's like if there was a screen there for a movie, but you couldn't see the stage. They had put a lighting grid over the stage, directly over the stage. It was about 14 feet up, which is not high enough, because all you're doing then is just cooking your actors who are on stage. And front of house lights were only on this rail right here. So they're right there in the actor's eyes. So you couldn't really light them well. I don't even remember what the sound system was like, but it doesn't matter because you have a drop ceiling and fabric on the wall, so you're just absorbing all the sound like crazy. So it was just not good.
So you saw some problems, you saw some issues.
There are some issues. Unfortunately, the Ritz was in whatever Sploss that was. I think it was Sploss 2, maybe 3 at the time. And it was lumped in with the police station's roof that needed a new roof. Oh yeah, the other thing that I'm sorry, they had the air handlers for the AC unit were over the stage, right up from the stage, like up there. Like here's the stage, and here's where they were. So when you turned on the air conditioning, you also couldn't hear. So you couldn't turn on the AC when there was a show. Now, this is South Georgia, so even in the winter, you really want the AC on when you have bodies in the theater. So it was kind of like fortunate if you didn't have a full house anyway, because it was not good.
They built an anti-theater.
They really did. You know, and I guess I was fine for movies and stuff, but it really was not thinking, because they wanted it to go back to be for live performances.
Was that the goal?
That was the goal. And for the community to use it and all those kinds of things. So it wasn't meant to be a movie theater again. Fortunately, we were in the Splost. We were in with the police station's new roof, which they desperately needed. So there wasn't a whole big chunk of money. So they got theirs first. So they got to spend as much as they wanted first. So whatever was left went to the Ritz for its renovation. This was in 2000, 2001. And this was right after I got here and became the executive director, basically. So I suddenly was a project manager as well. And it was really stretching it because the Ritz had to get a new roof, and the fire marshal got all his stuff first in our little pile of money. So that was most of the money. We were able to finagle getting the way that it looks now, the balcony corrected, this look, the AC, we didn't get quite thin because we didn't have enough money, but we got the lighting system redone so that it wasn't as horrendous as it was. And then the next year when the AC officially died, completely died, then we got to get a new one.
So you were able to modernize it and get it to the way you kind of wanted it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't done, it wasn't recreated.
It was not. Yeah, there's no, I've never found a picture of the interior of the Ritz.
That's interesting.
Yeah. There's lots of exterior photos of the building over the years, but there's none of the interior except for those pictures where the ceiling fell in. And so you can kind of see, and it wasn't big because it was built as the Grand Opera House, which there's 1 million of opera houses across the country. Georgia has thousands of them, I think, in every little small town. And even though it's grand, it's not big. The stages were really small. Typically, there's a fly, so it's the roof over the stage is higher, so that it will you can raise scenery up and down. And typically, in those kind of places, the dressing rooms and things are built up along the side, right off stage. So they're going up along the fly as well. When the roof collapsed, they didn't put the fly back in. But it was just mostly not opera, and it wasn't grand. It was typically just vaudeville that would happen.
Oh, those are the kind of acts that...
That's the kind of acts. There would be touring acts that would come through. The train station was catty corner. The Oglethorpe Hotel, and then the train depot was behind it. So, it's kind of a perfect little place for all those people coming in to go over to Jekyll or wherever. But then they could come and catch a little show and stuff. But it would be vaudeville, not usually. I don't think there was ever really opera.
So it wasn't really meant to be like some sort of like high art sort of environment.
But it sounds good.
But it sounds good. Yeah.
Grand Opera House sounds really good.
Yeah, there you go.
It makes it sound fancy. But then, as soon as movies came into existence, it was converted to a movie theater and converted to the Ritz at the time. So it was substantially altered on the exterior and probably on the interior as well, just to accommodate showing movies.
So the exterior changed as well.
Yeah, when it was built, it was 1899, so that's still Victorian age, and so it was all brick. It had across the top the crenellation thing. That's what it's called. So it has that little extra ornate little look across it. Of course, there's all the windows. Because there wasn't AC, and there wasn't, there might have started to been indoor lighting, certainly gas, but it was the Opera House, the Brunswick and Birmingham Railroad Company, who I assume had some money in it or paid for it, had their offices on the upper 2 floors of the building.
That's right, because this is a multi-story building. Mm-hmm. So above us right now...
There's nothing above us.
Oh, yeah. So
but on the opposite side of the wall where the lobby area is, there's 2 other floors above it. So that's where their offices were. But when the movies came in, they converted all that. I guess they had moved out by then. Those were converted into apartments. The exterior went to that more Art Deco look. So the crenellations off the top went away. That's when the sign was added, the Ritz sign that's on the front of the building, and the beautiful marquee that has disappeared into eternity, I guess.
So there was a marquee at one point.
Oh, yeah. We could never afford to replace what it looked like. It's so sad.
Are there pictures of that somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It was all, we're modern now, it's movie time, it's the Ritz, and so that's when it became the Ritz it was late 20s, early 30s. I mean, it was just immediately, as soon as movies, so.
Well, I guess that makes sense. People were going to see films, and they were very popular, so why not take advantage of that, I guess, in a place that could film or host film screenings like that. So, and to call it the Ritz makes it sound very fancy as well.
It does sound fancy. Now, I will tell you it is because the studios owned their theaters. So that's why you have 1 million Fox theaters and Paramount theaters and Ritz theaters, because there was the Ritz studio. It didn't last as long as the other ones, but they owned their theaters till their monopoly was broken up.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So there was a chain called the Ritz, or the chain of theaters called the
Yeah.
Ritz? Ah, okay.
Yeah, so there's a number of Ritz theaters around the country.
I knew about the Fox Theaters. I didn't realize that for Ritz as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where it came from.
Excellent. Okay. Let's go a little bit beyond the building now. So,
Okay.
So, looking at Newcastle Street, what were your impressions of Newcastle Street in this area whenever you first got here? You said nobody came here, right?
Yeah.
How has it changed, and what do you think's fostered that change over the years?
I mean, truly over the years, the traffic downtown has dramatically increased. And I strongly contribute that to the arts, and I don't mean just the Ritz, because the businesses that started coming in were galleries, restaurants, which I think of culinary arts, because most of those were kind of specialty restaurants that weren't just, here's the diner that you go to that everybody knows. And so those were the ones that first initially started coming in.
Do you recall some of those early efforts?
The gallery on Newcastle, which is still there, it's up the street. Glenda Kaysen had a gallery across the street from us. There was a little specialty kind of art shop. It was stuff, but it was art. It was art pieces as well as other kinds of things that you could get. Pam Pam's, of course, when she opened with her fancy cupcakes. Those were all great, and there were other along those lines. I mean, Peter's was here forever, which was the men's clothing store. I keep pointing because it was across the street from the Ritz. Sorry,
no problem.
I mean, he was there forever, and I mean, it was a kind of a mainstay in the downtown, and it was the place where guys could go to get a tux for a wedding, or he had suits and things like that, but there was no other men's shop really in the area. And then a fancier women's clothing, more formal women's clothing, opened next door to it and was open for a while. Bridal and prom and things like that. So I mean, it was more those things that were not just the attorneys or the finance companies or those kinds of things. It was more specialty kind of shops, or had an art focus to them. So it's and those kind of businesses, to me, because I do it, encourage, let's just walk around and look. And you might not be going to shop for something in particular necessarily, but you're going to go, oh, I want to go in there and look. And then you'll remember and come back if it's that kind of thing that you need.
So the window browsers.
It is kind of the window browsers, but it makes it more unique. It's not the mall. I mean, the mall was still a big deal at that point, and you're not going to find those places at the mall. So now you don't at all, because that's gone away too.
Yeah, we're changing yet again.
I know.
Which I guess is good for downtown. It seems like downtown
It
is
is.
getting more and more, and we'll talk about that in a second. So as you see this growth begin then in the early 2000s or so, are you as the Ritz manager, executive director, trying to take advantage of that growing population? Are you trying to bring some of those people into the building as well? Or?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's. I think of everyone as our audience. Now, whether everyone comes or not is a whole nother thing, because I do believe strongly that the arts are for everyone, and the problem is you have to want to give it a try, and that gets harder and harder, because we can look at our phones more than, or not leave our house. So that has always been the goal, and kind of in looking at what we do. And I think we just more feed into what's happening in the downtown, And hopefully, we're also bringing a whole bunch of people in that are going to see what's out there and what's new. Yeah, so I think that's a lot of what we do.
So you collaborate a lot with other
Yeah, we try to.
organizations.
I mean, yeah.
I know you do
work
something with the Big Read and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, we work with the library on the Big Read, and that, when did we do that the first time? 2017 was the first time we did the Big Read, I think. Oh my gosh, no. I think it was earlier than that. I have to go back and look. Anyway, it was really the third Big Read that we did. No, it might have been like 2008. It was a long time ago. Oh my gosh, I've been here forever. But we started doing like our kickoffs for the Big Read on First Friday, which had just started like a year or two before that, and they were kind of, sort of okay, but there were some long nights of hardly anybody coming in and things like that. And we did like a scavenger hunt for one of the Big Reads, and it was like suddenly 1 million people. It was like, where did all these people come from? Oh my gosh, yay! And it was, just kind of spilled over because, we had all the downtown businesses involved in the scavenger hunt, along with the library, so people were coming in and going into all these different businesses and all that kind of stuff, and it was great. And I think that's when it just kind of really exploded from there.
When was the scavenger hunt? Do you recall that?
It was for the Edgar Allan Poe Big Read, which I want to say was like 2008 or 9.
So one of the earlier ones.
It was one of the earlier ones. Yeah.
That's interesting. So they basically had a sheet of paper with certain things they had to go find. Mm-hmm. What was in the Ritz that they had to find?
They were looking for different ravens. We had all these different like cardboard ravens that were cut out that had like a different quote. So they were for trying to match quotes to books, to our stories, to some of the Poe stories.
That's clever.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it would have that. Yeah.
I'd like to see that happen. I'd play with that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
And people dug it. So yeah. So we did that. But we have done other things like that during First Friday. And and that's just kind of escalated over the years with other people coming up with their own things, which is great, So
what other things have you done for First Friday? I know you guys are kind of a hub for First Friday.
we typically are having an exhibit that opens. And so there's always that's going on. For one First Friday, we did a flash mob, which was fun.
How did that
I
work?
love flash mob. And this is part of the Great Gatsby Big Read. So we did, we had a whole bunch of people that learned a Charleston dance. And so, we even rehearsed on a Sunday afternoon because nobody comes down on a Sunday afternoon. And then, because we did in the middle of the street. And just, yeah, it was good.
And the crowd went wild.
And the crowd went wild. It was awesome. Yeah, we haven't done that in a while.
That would be fun to do.
Yeah, that would be fun to do again. So, but yeah, it's just, sometimes there'll be, we'll have, some performances that are on the stage, especially, at the holiday time, kids' chorus groups, or we've had a wind ensemble that will play. We hosted the Golden Isles Film Festival in July. That's a new organization that's trying to get going and get started. So they had, 3 or 4 short film screenings that happened here that night. So, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever we can think of, that's pretty much it.
It's got to be a great job to be able to just come up with ideas like that.
It is pretty fun. It's bad when you're going, I don't feel creative today, so, but.
What about work with kids? I know you mentioned that's one of the programs that you like is working with children. Is that?
Oh, yeah. We do arts and education programs, so we offer programs to the schools. We have field trips here to the Ritz, usually 2 to 3 a year, so that they're bringing kids from school here to see a live performance. We do the Penguin Project, which is not necessarily just kids, it's young people with disabilities that we're working with, so giving them the opportunity to star in a show, a really good show, too. They're awesome, I love them. But yeah, we host student art exhibits, typically 2 to 3 of those a year, so they have a, place to come and show off. I mean, I want the Ritz to be a place for anybody and everybody to feel like they can be a part of it. I think that's part of what's important about finding ways to do things, because art is engagement, and that's something that we don't do as well anymore, and so trying to find those things that's going to engage people is what's, I think, important.
And you see this building as kind of a hub for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think this area looks like, Newcastle Street, these blocks around here, downtown in general, looks like without the Ritz here? Like, what if that had been bulldozed back in the...
Well, there'd probably be parking.
What would we have lost?
I think it would have been a tremendous loss to the downtown, because I mean, that's kind of a hard one to say exactly, but I mean, it's a symbol of the arts. It symbolizes that, so it allows more of that to happen. If there's nothing at all and you're just trying to make it out of a little square building, you can do it. It just takes more work. It's harder for people to find or seek it out. But when you've got something like this, and people can see and go, yeah, that's in downtown. That's what where's the Ritz? Downtown Brunswick. Then people know where it is. Then they know where downtown is too.
So it's a landmark.
It is a landmark.
And a symbol at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a symbol. So if it was a symbol of art, would you say it's art for a certain group, or?
I hope it says it's art for everybody. I mean, truly that's been a goal for me. I mean, I don't, art isn't exclusive. It shouldn't be, ever, no matter what it is, because everyone has their own way of appreciating art, whether it's what you consider highfalutin, like opera, maybe, or if it's just a comedy show or something. It's whatever people can get something out of, that engages them, that makes them feel or think. That's what art is.
I may have already asked you, but I want to ask you some more about the programming.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your experiences so far, your favorite programming moment, and some of the ones that you look back on fondly. Can you give me some more examples of those?
Right now, my absolute favorite thing that we do is the Penguin Project, and that's not going to change ever now, I don't think, because my background is theater. I spent all my life in the theater, pretty much, and it is truly the best theater experience I have ever had in my life. And I can tell from the audiences that it is for them too, because what is happening on stage is just this incredible passion for what they're doing. I mean, you can just feel it, and giving those young people this opportunity to be able to say, I can do everything and anything that anybody else can, is really important. Okay, now I'm going to get all upset. It's just great. It's just great. But, there's been, other wonderful shows that we brought in, some that we produced ourselves. It's just hard to say, because they're all different. Our season is really eclectic. It's not just one kind of thing. A lot of it is familiar. Again, this year we've got a Beatles tribute band coming in because it's the Beatles. They're great and everybody loves them, so why not? But we're also bringing in a show called Blood Done Sign My Name, which is based on a book. It's a one-man show adapted by Mike Wiley, African-American actor, that's going to speak, I think, to our community in a really more profound and serious way. And art makes you think, and sometimes you need to look at things maybe from outside, maybe from art, to help you kind of go, we can do a lot better.
The power of art. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm not going to ask you if there have been any sort of like
duds?
Duds.
Oh, yeah. There has always been some duds. There's been some duds.
Every now and then.
Every now and then. Sometimes you just don't know. You just don't know. And it's live performance. So, especially some of the one-night things, you hope that's not ever going to happen, but there's been some weird ones.
Anything you want to share, or there's more of a private?
Okay, there was one. Okay, I'll tell you this one. It was just like, oh my God, I can't even believe this is happening. This was a tribute show. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a kind of a country with different people doing different artists, like, and one was Johnny Cash in this, who passed out in the middle of the show on stage, and he was drunk. That's why he passed out. It's like, okay then. Fortunately, he wasn't the only one up there, so there were some other guys to do stuff, but it's just like, okay, there you go, the joys of live performance.
A little too much in character.
Yeah. And we've had full house and power go out.
Oh, that must be
bad storm, power go out. And that one, what happened was the performer, and it was actually Katie Deal, who was doing kind of a Patsy Cline tribute. The people, they're not work lights, the emergency lights were on, so there was light in here, but some people were holding up their phones and they just did it a cappella, which is great, and the audience was like, yay!
That's great.
So, because it was a full house, and I was like, oh, okay.
I'm sure your stomach probably sunk a little bit whenever.
Oh yeah, it does. So, things happen. But
again, a live theater, right?
It's live theater.
Yeah, it's the beauty of it. What do people say to you about this place whenever they talk about the structure? Like, even like people who are from out of town who come in, because I've noticed whenever I was here last time, people just wandered in, looked around and left.
Yeah.
What are they telling you about the place?
Oh, I think most people are like, think it's great. They think it's cute. Depends on, I guess, what size theater they have in their community. They love that it's being used. It makes them think and reminisce about what they remember from their past, or what they had growing up or didn't have. I think people are really fascinated by theaters. Whenever I go into any place, if there's a theater and I can go and look at it, I want to. And people want to know what's going to be coming up next. Is there something we can come and see? So I had a lot of those questions today, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have anything this weekend? Nope, not this weekend, sorry. But come back.
So you would consider this place an anchor then for downtown?
Oh yeah, I do.
And Newcastle Street in general?
Mm-hmm.
And from that, so looking maybe currently in the future, what do you see as like the next step for this building, for your organization, and for the area in general? Like, what do you want to do next for this building?
What I would like to do and see is the building get completely renovated, or as much as we can.
There's still some work to be done.
Yeah, you want the short list or the long list?
And we have plenty of memory cards, so go for it.
I mean, there's still many things about the space that are not ideal, that can be better. We certainly are not upgraded for the 21st century that we're in terms of Wi-Fi or all the fancy technical things that you can have. You know, I have companies that'll go, and do you have moving lights? We do not have moving lights. You can move it around if you want to, but we don't have them. This stage space is small. It's a very small stage. As opera houses were built, and we've extended it, but there's no backstage, there's no wing space really to speak of. So that's, makes it challenging. I had to be very creative, which is good, but my brain cells might wear out on that soon. So
keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. The 2 floors above the lobby have not been touched, and they desperately need it sooner than later for the building's sake, but also it's just wasted space at the moment. It's space that could be ideally used for like more classroom space, a studio space, a conference space for people to rent out to. Which comes with its own challenges, because it's a public building. That means an elevator has to go in, and then, where does that go? Because the footprint isn't going to be extending either way, really. So, I mean, there's challenges with that. And, things just keep costing more and more and more. So there's challenges with that. The AC will have to be replaced again very soon. That will be the soonest project.
That's likely to be pretty pricey as well.
Oh, yeah. It was pricey when it happened 22 years ago. And it's kind of just holding its own right now.
Think good thoughts.
Think happy thoughts about the AC, because that's the killer to me. If there's no AC, you can't be in here. People, when we're full, which we are for lots of shows, if the AC is not working, all those bodies, it's just too hot. You can't. If audiences are uncomfortable, they're not going to enjoy. Actors can be uncomfortable. We know that. We deal with that, but audiences can't.
That makes sense.
So there's lots and lots of those kinds of things to happen. The building first, to me.
That seems pretty challenging to have to maintain a historic structure then.
Yeah. I mean, it is. If you're talking to other people, I'm sure they're saying the same thing. We are, it's also keeping the integrity of the structure, but still keeping it modern for, the times and the things that you want to do. And I'm getting the internet, I hope, fixed, like how it's all set. I don't understand it, but anyway, this year, and hopefully we're getting live oak fiber in here, I hope. Excuse me, because then at least like in here right now, if somebody wants to do we want to stream a movie, I'm like, no you don't. You can bring it on a disc, you can bring it on a flash drive, but I will not let you try to stream it, because it might not. And then what do? You have people come, and then you go, oops, sorry, the internet's not working. So, excuse me. Yeah. So
There are some challenges.
there's some challenges.
And since you are sort of, I mean, there are other smaller galleries around this area. What's your opinion on spreading art and culture, like especially things like sculptures and things like that, artwork out into the public along Newcastle Street?
Public art?
Yeah, public art.
Excuse me. I mean, I'm for it. I'm for public art. It depends on what it is. You know, you don't. It depends on what it is and where it's going to go.
Do you think it's something that would be beneficial to the street? Make it a little
It
more-
can't. I think it can be. I think it just depends. It depends on what it's going to be. You know, you just if somebody just went, I'm putting this statue right here. You know, well, okay, what does that have to do with, you know, anything? Or if because I would say because one, we have all these little historic squares, the little pocket parks, and the squares at the end of the street that have been carefully redesigned. So if there's art that's going to go into them or around them, how does it complement? Or is it doing something to enhance the downtown or enhance the history of the area? Or instead of it just being, we just need some art out here.
So it shouldn't be haphazard.
I don't think it should be haphazard at all, because then it can get kind of out of control. I think I think it's also because the downtown is it's a certain space. I mean, it's limited in its space, and so I'm not like trying to poo-poo it. It's just like it needs to be for a reason, or that doesn't sound right.
No, it makes sense to me. Yeah,
But, you know,
there
it's
needs
not-
to be some art for a reason, not just.
Yeah, it's not just, hey, I did this art, let me put it up. Oh, okay. You know, I mean, anybody could do that. I think it needs to have some significance, you know,
some meaning of some
and some meaning to it, for it to be public art, you know. I mean, we've got a bunch of murals now, and I'll just put this out here. They went out there kind of randomly, and that they're good artists that did them, but what was the reasoning behind it? And then the other factor that you have to put in with public art is how does it stay maintained? And who's responsible for that?
That's a good point, yeah.
Because if something happens to any of the art, or it's like, oh, the hurricane's coming, do we need to cover up this piece of art, or does it need to come down because it will blow down, or depending on what it is, you know? So who's responsible then for
Yeah,
that?
I was just talking to Commissioner Martin about the signature squares, and she said something similar. It's like, you know, yeah, you built the square, you rehabilitated the square, but you have to keep maintaining it moving forward as well.
Yeah.
So you see a similar thing with
It's the
public.
same thing with public art. It can't just be, look, I put this out here, aren't you glad? And you got some art now. And then what happens when it gets, you know, damaged? Is it just going to stay like that? Or, you know, murals that are on buildings, we've already had one that got completely painted over because it has a new owner.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh.
New owner just painted over it. Well, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, the property, I guess.
It's their property, but you spent all the time or money or whatever it was to get that up there without any kind of plan to keep it. So, you know, it's public art is a trickier thing because it is. Somebody has to end up being responsible for the maintenance of it. And it does need to, you know, if it's here in downtown Brunswick, what is it for? What is it saying? What do you want to say? I mean, that's what public art tends to also have some kind of voice behind it, or reason, or purpose. You know, so it's not just, look, it's pretty.
It should take some thought.
It needs to take a little bit of thought.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. For you, again, being a fixture downtown and along Newcastle Street, trying to think of how I want to phrase this. What's been the most rewarding thing for you, seeing over the years as Newcastle Street has grown in terms of the businesses, the people? What's been the most rewarding feeling for you about all that sensation for you?
I mean, I think just having trying to think of the right way to say it, the life back. I mean, because it was dead down here when I got here. I mean, there was like nobody in the downtown really at all. And truly, we joke about it, but I'm thankful every day when there's no parking available, because that means that there's people down here and that there's all these businesses that people are going into, or, they're having lunch, or they're walking to a shop or doing some of that kind of stuff. That's great. That tourists are deliberately making this a stop. They're not going just to the beach and then they go home. So, because I have that all the time, people coming in. Look, this was on our list to do. Come to the Ritz. I'm like, great. We're not doing anything, but come on in. No. No, but I mean, it really is seeing that there's not really empty storefronts, that there's lots of people about hanging out, just being here. I mean, then it feels like a city. Then you go, this is Brunswick. This is the city of Brunswick. Mm-hmm. And we know the rest of it is, but the downtown really feels like, it's a hot, happening place.
It's got character.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And some more big picture questions here. 100 years from now, whenever they're doing an anniversary of the Ritz Theater, and they're talking about this moment in time, what do you want them to take away from this moment in time as they're highlighting this part of the history?
In 2023?
In 2023, so let's say 2123. What's that?
That the building's completely renovated. And it's got classes going on all the time. There's all kinds of arts programming happening all the time for young and old alike. The theater is busy every weekend. No, I won't wish that on anybody. At least 3 weekends a month it's busy. That, that people, and that it's selling out all the time. Whatever shows are happening, people want to be here.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. And 2 final questions. So, big picture questions. There's something so far in your tenure as executive director that you look back on and say, I wish I'd done that a little bit differently, or I took a swing at something and missed and wish I had another shot at it? Or do you feel pretty good about things?
I think I actually feel pretty good about things. I try not to worry to death about things that don't work. I'm happy that this is going to sound dumb. I'm happy that I think about stuff and go, that really doesn't work anymore. What do we do different to make it work now? Because this can be something that can get stayed, and it's all you just, okay, we have our season, we have some shows, we do this, blah, 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 blah. But there are things, and it happens a lot more frequently now, that you have to go, that doesn't work anymore. People don't do things like that anymore. People don't want to do this. They do want to do this. And so you have to just go ahead and take a leap and try it. And I'm glad that I do that more than I thought I would. Does that make sense?
Total sense. There's no advice you give the 2000 version of Heather that you, from experience now, is there any advice you would give that person?
Get more staff and keep them as long as you can. Well, you know, I mean, I think it would just be, just keep trying, you know? Don't be afraid of trying. Because that's a hard one to get around sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I've let go of a lot of things over the years. And, you know, some of them, when I came here, things were done a certain way, and it was just like, that doesn't work. We got to try something else. Okay, that one's not working anymore. Let's do this. So that's it.
So you're a big believer of throwing it against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate that. And one final question for you, and I just blanked on what I was going to ask you. I didn't have a question though. I thought it felt pretty good at the time.
Okay.
Give me a second. Oh. Who has been, besides you, who has been, do you feel like, the biggest supporter and proponent of the work you do here in the building itself? Who's been the most helpful to you, the most supportive to you?
Besides my husband.
Okay, your husband, sure. Yes, your husband.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Brian. And I would say, I mean, over the years, I mean, we're an organization because we're a nonprofit, have a board of directors. I've had some exceptionally good board members who are very supportive of me and of the building. And I've had good support from the city. In part, again, I'm going back to my husband, who was the mayor. So that was helpful. But prior to that, the city manager, Roosevelt Harris, before then, that was all during the SPLOS days, but really wanted to make, you know, it was like, we want to make sure that the building, and since that time, I think every city manager, and most of the city commission and mayors have been supportive of what this building does. Matthew with DDA as well, recognizing what the Ritz means to the downtown. So very thankful for that because, well, the city actually owns the building, so we're glad they take an interest. But, you know, I'm glad they, you know, will listen to my experience as well. So that's helpful.
So they see the value.
I think they see the value very much so.
And the community itself sees the value of it.
I think the community definitely does, and not just the community that is the members of Brunswick, the city of Brunswick, but Glenn County is very supportive. I mean, we have great support from the community because I mean, we're a nonprofit. We can't do it without. Well, one, if you're a theater and nobody comes, then you got a problem. So, you know, we got people that are coming. That's great. We have people that are financially supportive of the events and programs that we do, and we couldn't do it without them. I mean, we couldn't. So.
All right. Well, I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
Did we miss anything? Something you want to talk about, or
I don't
any
think
final
so.
thoughts for posterity?
I don't think so. I mean, I just hope, I mean, this building's been here since 1899. We're about to hit 125 next year, so I hope at least another 125 years that it will be going. Maybe it will be a shrine by then to something. I don't know what.
All right. Well, I guess on that note, we will call it a wrap on the interview. It is now 4:48 p.m. on Friday, September the 8th, and we will end the interview there.
All right, great.
Heather, thank you so much.
Oh, you're